The fight for abortion pill access continues after a federal appeals court on Wednesday said it would limit access to the abortion pill mifepristone, ruling that the Food and Drug Administration had overstepped its authority with a series of actions that made it much easier for Americans to obtain the drug, such as allowing prescriptions to be filled by mail. Reminder that this is a medication abortion. It is completely safe. It's even safer than some regular over-the-counter medications that we take most days. But let's get into this ruling because it's unlikely to have an immediate impact on access to the drug because of an earlier Supreme Court decision that paused any changes to the status quo. Now, the appeals court ruling does, however, set up another showdown at the SCOTUS over access to the drug as well as abortion rights. Now, this ruling was from a 3-judge panel of the New Orleans-based 5th US Circuit Court of Appeals, all 3 of whom were nominated, of course, by Republican presidents. So let's get into the facts of this from USA Today. The appeals court panel waived off part of the lawsuit that challenged the FDA's underlying approval of the drug, ruling that it was likely barred by the statute of limitations. It also allowed the FDA's approval in 2019 of a generic version of the drug to stand. But the panel affirmed a US District Court ruling that blocked a move by the FDA in 2021 to allow the drugs to be dispensed through the mail. The appeals court also ruled against FDA decisions in 2016 to let pregnant people take the drug 3 weeks longer into a pregnancy and to let pharmacists prescribe the drug instead of just doctors. This is from the court ruling. I'm gonna read it for you. In loosening mifepristone's safety restrictions, FDA failed to address several important concerns about whether the drug would be safe for the women who use it. It failed to gather evidence that affirmatively showed that mifepristone could be used safely without being prescribed and dispensed in person. That is absolute BS. If you know anything about mifepristone, it's also an absurd overstep by the court that they would insert themselves as the authority on this matter. Just think about it. Who do you want making these decisions about medical care? The experts at the FDA or judges who give you decisions like what I'm about to read? Because this is absurd. Now, this is a concurring opinion. So this is someone who agreed with the result that the conclusion that the court came to in their opinion, but got there a different way. So this isn't from the opinion, but this was one of the judges. And I found it this morning from this tweet that said Judge Ho, and concurring with his colleagues to limit the use of a widely used abortion medication, which is also used for other conditions, compares a plaintiff's alleged aesthetic injury in wanting to prevent the use of the drug to wildlife watching. And I think it's important, so I'm just gonna read that brief excerpt of what he wrote. And I just want everyone to know that judges can be idiots, lawyers can be idiots. Take it from one. And I know plenty of the dumbest people I've ever met are lawyers and judges. And I think this will show you that that's very much the case. He wrote, it's well established that if a plaintiff has concrete plans to visit an animal's habitat and view that animal, the plaintiff suffers aesthetic injury when an agency has approved a project that threatens the animal. Then he continues on and compares that to abortion rights. He writes this: unborn babies are a source of profound joy for those who view them. Expectant parents eagerly share ultrasound photos with loved ones. Friends and family cheer at the sight of an unborn child. Doctors delight in working with their unborn patients and experience an aesthetic injury when they are aborted. So Jackson, what this judge is actually arguing is that anybody can sue someone who has an abortion because they've suffered a harm, they've suffered an injury. If that person gets an abortion, because what? Because you didn't get to look at the ultrasound pictures? I mean, these are the people who are deciding, these are the unelected people who are making major decisions about our lives in this country. And that's the type of just illiterate screed that they're putting out for the public. And I'll just also add this: horribly written. Just everything you learn in law school about how to structure a document in legal writing out the window, just disgusting writing. But Jackson, before we get into some more facts about this and the safety of mifepristone, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, essentially all this is rationalization of political stances. That's all it is. The Supreme Court is very politicized, and many of the federal judges are very politicized. And as this country continues to lean more and more into extremism, and our entire political system becomes kind of just a running reality TV show, you got to make sense out of it some way. And two, people like this kind of strike me as they're trying really hard to be clever. Like, I'm gonna use my degree, or I'm gonna use my certifications to, be smarter than everybody else in some type of way. But at the end of the day, this is a very, very unpopular political agenda. And the Republican Party, the Republican entity in this country, is seemingly doing everything it can to take the most unpopular stances and run with them as fast as they possibly can. So there's really no way to justify this. These politicians, these judges know that the people don't want this. We saw what Kansas did. We saw what happened in Ohio. And, the amount of women who have taken mifepristone for whatever reason, because they weren't ready or because some type of assault happened, is a lot. So again, like, this impacts a lot of people, unnecessarily so, because at the end of the day, the people who sit in high places, the big donors, they don't care about this. They care about their tax cuts. They care about making sure the regulations continue to get, lessened in this country, axed in this country. So this is just a big culture war that has spilled over into real legislation, and it's destroying people's lives.
Right, I've taken mifepristone, and we'll talk in a minute just about how safe this drug is, but it really does like break my heart to think that I had such easy access to it. I was very lucky, and to think that other women who are in similar situations to me in the future are not going to have that same access is mortifying, and especially when abortion rights have been so restricted in so many parts of the country. I mean, it's like every day there's a new story about a child who's been forced to give birth to their rapist's baby and now has to be a mother while in middle school or elementary school is mortifying. But what's also mortifying is the massive overreach that this court has done with this ruling. And so many critics are raising the alarm on how unusual it is for federal courts to weigh into decisions that are handed down by the FDA. So here's one of those criticisms. Judges are playing with fire when they interfere with medical decisions, said Lawrence Gostin, a professor of global health law at Georgetown University. If you looked at this as a cancer drug or a heart drug, you'd know immediately and intuitively that you want the FDA to be making that decision, not judges or legislators. And that's the perfect way to frame it, because it is the politicization of women's healthcare, of women's bodies, of our reproductive rights. Because exactly like he said, you would not see the same sort of ruling if it was any other type of drug that treated any other, type of condition that hasn't been, the focal point of Republican culture war politics. Now, the Justice Department said in a statement that it would appeal the ruling to the Supreme Court and vowed to defend the FDA's scientific judgment as well as access to reproductive care. But as we've said before, it bears repeating. I've said it throughout this entire story. The medication abortion is safe. Medication abortion accounts for about half of all US abortions, and a wide array of government agencies and outside experts have said the drug is safer than common drugs such as Tylenol and Viagra. But the anti-abortion groups challenging the drug questioned those studies and argued that the FDA didn't follow its own protocols and ignored contrary data as it expedited the drug's approval. I mean, Jackson, it would be devastating if they, politicize like cancer treatment in the same way, right? But to see that they won't even politicize a more dangerous, medication that, is Viagra. They don't politicize men's reproductive health care in nearly the same way that they do women. So I think it'd be hard for anyone to argue that this is about anything other than controlling women's bodies and their autonomy.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, because the idea of women being able to have autonomy in the world in general makes men have to try harder, makes men have to work harder. It takes away the idea that I just belong at the top. I'm at the pinnacle just because. Same thing as the lost cause, same thing as the Republican Party desperately being tied down to Donald Trump. It's all the same, just clinging to entitlement in a lot of ways. And two, finally, I just want to close off with, mifepristone, how much less that is taken than things like Tylenol or Viagra. You know what I mean? Like women who undergo abortion procedures in whatever manner, it typically maybe once, twice. It's typically not like, oh, I've done this 20 times. Like, sure, that may be here and there, but for the most part, but how many people are popping Cialis and Viagra every time they trying to get it on? You know what I'm saying? So like, just in terms of the ratio of how much this is taken, it's not taken that much. So again, I think you pointed it out perfectly. This really is just a war on women.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.